Hi everybody, Jane here, and I'm doing a review on The Wonder of Lost Causes. I read this in April, and it was my favorite book for April. It's a 5 out of 5 for me. Just gonna say that going in because I'm gonna kind of gush about it. I am going to do like a non-spoiler section up front and then a spoiler section. The first thing I will spoil in the spoiler section is the question of, does everybody survive? Because I know so many people are afraid to get into a book where we have a dog and a child because those books tend to end with one of them dying. So we will talk about that in a minute so that you know whether maybe you want to read this book or not. Because I had asked a friend, I'm like, do you want to borrow this when I'm done doing my review? Because it was really good. And the first thing she asked is, does the dog or the kid die? Because I ain't all about that. So I'm gonna go ahead and not here, but in the spoiler section, that'll be the first thing I spoil. So if you want to know that, we're gonna get there. And then I'll spoil other things too if you want to pop off after that. But so this book is about a boy who has cystic fibrosis, which is a lung condition. He is being raised by a single mother who is a veterinarian and who works at an animal shelter. This is a limited animal shelter, so it's what we around here would call like a dog pound. Like we have the Humane Society, which is no kill, and then we have the dog pound, which is, you know, dogs have a certain amount of time and then that's up and that's what you get. This boy has been raised around dogs. He loves dogs, but his mother has never let him get a dog. She says, you know, firstly, the apartment they live in, their landlord doesn't allow animals, and also he's in the hospital so much and she's already exhausted from taking care of him that adding a dog to the scene, she just doesn't feel like she can do it. And I think before I had children, and before I had children that had some health issues, I wouldn't have understood that. I do now. Parenting is exhausting. And sometimes you just realize that on top of everything else you've got going, an animal is just not a possibility. That's kind of the way it is in our world. My children would love a cat or a dog, and I would love a cat or a dog, mostly a dog. But I'd take a cat too. I like cats. I love dogs. But that's not in our world because I know that that would be the straw that broke the camel's back for us of things that just overwhelming. Anyway, so his mom has said no dogs. This dog comes in to their Humane Society, or their animal shelter, I guess, more accurately, their animal shelter, and he just looks beat up. He's got scarring, he's rather ugly, he's older, and he's just not a super adoptable dog. And this boy forms an instant connection with this dog. There's a little bit of a kind of supernatural maybe element because he believes that he knows what this dog is feeling. So him and this dog can almost communicate telepathically. And of course, his mother is concerned about his mental health when he tells her this because she doesn't believe that him and this dog are communicating. And when I say telepathically, this book is told in a dual perspective from the mom and the son. The son's name is Jasper. And, you know, he doesn't say like the dog is giving him sentences or anything in his head. It's more like he gets a feeling. So it's really interesting, especially if you know anything, like if you ever were into the pet psychic or anything like that. It kind of reminds me of the things that she said, where she'd get an impression or a feeling, and that's kind of what he's saying. On the other hand, too, like a lot of people have really close relationships with their dogs, and I do think this jumps a little bit into like more supernatural than we can just say a close relationship with a dog and a kid. But I've had some pretty close relationships with dogs in my past that I owned, and this is definitely like a level into the mysterious and supernatural, but not by much. I mean, a lot of us have dogs that you look at them and they look at you and you can kind of get what they're trying to relate to you. You'd have to be stupid not to a lot of times. Dogs are very good communicators. But anyway, so the dog's name is Whistler, and Jasper and Whistler become super close. You know, Jasper, of course, has a lot of medical issues through this book, and Whistler and him just become so close. And anything else I would say would spoil probably the second half of the book. So I'm going to stop there and just say I loved this. It very much ticked my boxes. It was amazing. I loved the storyline of the cystic fibrosis. I loved all of the dog stuff and the Humane Society stuff. I loved the relationship between characters. It was so good. So good. A couple negatives, and they are small negatives. Number one, there's some backtracking in the story. So you have Jasper's perspective and Kate's perspective. Kate's his mom, I do believe. That is her name. Jasper and Kate, yes. So you have Jasper and Kate. And sometimes they will kind of tell the same scene from their different perspectives. And I didn't always find that necessary. Sometimes it added to the story and sometimes it didn't. So I could have gone without that at times. Overall, it wasn't that distracting. It didn't bother me. It is told in first-person point of view on each side, which I know some people don't like that. Again, that didn't bother me. I thought it was well done and I didn't care. There is an epilogue in the book, and I'm not sure it was an epilogue that I wanted. I wasn't upset by it or anything like that. I got what it was trying to convey, but I didn't necessarily like some of the stuff in it. I didn't love the epilogue. So those were kind of my biggest complaints. Kate, I had mixed feelings about. I think she was well done, but I definitely felt sorry for her, and that sometimes I would have liked to delve more into her as a character, where this book is very much focused on Jasper. We do get some of Kate as a character and as her in a role of caregiver to her son and things related to her son and his story. But I would have been okay with a little more about Kate as Kate. Kate really exists in this book contextually as mother of Jasper. And yes, veterinarian who's taking care of Whistler, but her primary role in this story and most of what we see is her relationship with her son. And there's very little we know about her outside of her relationship with Jasper, even though she's got a point of view. So I think that might have been done intentionally to share the all-encompassing nature of having a sick child. But I would have liked to seen a little more from her, especially because there's a thing that's kind of hinted at in one part of the book, and we learn about it in the epilogue, but we don't get to see it. And I would have liked to have seen it. I would have liked to have, I wasn't real fulfilled by it. And that would have been an aspect of her more personal life that I would have liked to have seen, that again is kind of mentioned in the early part of the book. And then we get a resolution in the epilogue, but there's nothing in the middle that I would have liked to see how that went. So anyway, this book is not flawless. I'm not saying it is flawless, but it ticks all my buttons and I loved it. All right, so I'm going to get into the first spoiler. And that is that nobody dies in the actual book. So Jasper and Whistler both live. Now, in the epilogue, I think by then Whistler has died of old age. This has Jasper as an adult. He's a child psychologist, maybe. And he is working with dogs and children at his clinic. And he has a new dog who he's trying to use in the therapy and who he ultimately kind of like foists on a family. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, like, no, this isn't like one of those sad, the dog is laying there as this kid dies, or the kid lost his dog but learned a lot of crap from it. The dog does not die in the end. Again, I think it's referenced that he did die of old age eventually later on, but it's not like a big dramatic, oh my God, you're breaking my heart thing, which is one of the things I was worried about with reading it. And I think a lot of people who know this type of book worry about going in. They're like, am I going to be able to handle the emotions? So I'm just going to assure you, it's fine. The kid lives, the dog lives to a ripe old age. It's fine. All right, so I'm going to get into some other spoilers now. If you just stayed for that one, you can hop off. I'm going to try not to spoil anything super, super, super book-breakingly important in the book. But if you don't want any spoilers from here on out, you can hop off now. So this book, one thing that's kind of cool about it is that it's divided almost into a part 1 and a part 2. So in the first part, you have Whistler has appeared. They're trying to find out where he's from. You have Jasper getting close to Whistler. And you have a real exploration of who Jasper is, what he wants as a little boy that is sick, and his relationship with this dog. And it is all so cute and so wonderful. Then in the book, we learn that Whistler is actually a service dog. Now, if any of you know me, you know I love service dogs. I love anything related to service dogs, so I was like, yes, this is wonderful. So we learn Whistler was a service dog in his previous life. He probably was at some point abused, but he was separated from his former owner, the person he was a service dog to, during a tornado. His owner died, and so that's how he got loose and was running around, and that's how he ended up with Jasper. So the second half of the book is basically Jasper and Kate on this road trip trying to return Whistler, because Whistler belongs to these service dog people. He is a very special kind of service dog. He is a seizure alert dog. And so we kind of get the impression that maybe that's why Jasper and Whistler can communicate so well is, I think they never say that it's not supernatural, but, you could always say, well, it's because he's a seizure dog and they're just really intuitive. I don't know, but he's a seizure dog. So they go on this kind of trip, and Kate really learns how to let her son live his life, because that's one thing that she's not good at. She's very much a hovering, overprotective mom, which has caused a lot of problems. We learn pretty early that she has been stealing some of her son's medicines just to keep going, because, she's got to take care of him, and she's very obsessed with him and his care. And that causes a lot of problems in the book. Again, why she can't have a dog, because she's so exhausted from trying to rule her son's life and care for him that she's popping drugs. She doesn't have the energy to take care of a dog as well, because she's so exhausted from dealing with her son's medical issues. So we get a lot more in the second part of the book about Kate growing in her relationship with Jasper and learning to kind of let go and learning to let him be a child. And I loved that. I thought that was so well done, and that was a lot of fun. And she does give up her drugs, just saying. And I liked that, because that was one of the things that really put me off about Kate, is that she's stealing her son's drugs. And yeah, that bothered me. I understood why, but I didn't like it, and that kind of made me like her a little bit less. Get to this place with the service dogs, and we see how Whistler handles being back, and we get to see kind of some things about the service dog training and the people who have this organization. And Whistler is supposed to be presented to a little girl who has seizures, and it was just a really interesting view and discussion on the importance of service dogs, and they are so important. I'm very pro service dog. Anything we can do to support service dog organizations, we absolutely should be doing that. So anyway, I really enjoyed that aspect of the book. And I thought I was going to be really heartbroken if Jasper and Whistler were separated. But that's kind of like the second half of the book is them going here and Jasper dealing with all the emotions of, Whistler can make somebody else who is sick their life better. And he has this special gift and special talent. He's a special dog, but Jasper loves him so much. So it was a really just good book. It's, like I said, it ticked all my boxes. I loved it. I did cry. It was emotional and wonderful, but it wasn't like emotional, like sad, rip your heart out, dog and kid die. It wasn't that kind of sad. It was a better kind of sad. So again, a little bit of a trigger warning, I guess, for drug abuse and alcoholism. Now, the alcoholism is not the mom. It's another character. I am going to go ahead and touch on now, since I'm in the spoiler section, what I touched on briefly about Kate's life. Her friend at work is trying to set her up with a man because she thinks that Kate needs to date again. Kate has not dated since Jasper's dad, and in the epilogue, we find out that Kate is with this guy. But we never see in between. This guy never gets to be on stage. We never get to meet him. They never go out to dinner. We never see him interact with Jasper. And here's the thing. I would have liked that to happen. I would have liked them to at least have one date before she has to run off and do the service dog thing. And they could have totally put that in there. They could have totally been like, she's having a date with this guy. Whoever's watching her kid's watching her kid. Maybe she leaves him home with Whistler. I don't know. You could have done so much with this. I would have loved to see that date. I would have loved to see this guy she ends up with and to see a different side of Kate that is not involved in parenting. I would have also been okay seeing more of Kate as a veterinarian. Most of her role in this book is just as Jasper's mom, as I mentioned. And I would have liked to see more of Kate the veterinarian, Kate on a date. Another thing, Kate has very specific family dynamics, but those family dynamics all come back to Jasper. So her mother doesn't really know how to interact with Kate. She feels like Kate's pushing her away because Kate's like a little guilty about being a single mom, I think. Kate's sister has a lot of emotional problems but doesn't want to talk to Kate about it because, Kate has things way worse. So why would I blame my burdens on Kate? Kate doesn't have any relationship at all with Jasper's father, Jasper's biological father. We only know that he left because he didn't want to have kids, and especially a sick child. So those are the things we know about Kate, but I would have liked to know a little bit more about her as a person in her own right, especially because we get her point of view. And she doesn't seem to have any life of her own. And again, that may exactly be the point, but I would have liked to see who Kate was as a person instead of just in the context of Jasper's caregiver and mom. So yeah, those are my thoughts on this book. I really, really enjoyed it. It was the best read I had this month. I really thought it was well done. I cannot wait to read more from this author. I actually just went and ordered basically all the books they have because they've got lots of dog books. So I just went and ordered from the library all the books that they have. So you're going to be seeing reviews of books by Nick Trout. But it was really well done. It broke my heart in a good way. The scenes with the boy and his dog and the love with the boy and his dog, that came through so well. The family love, how much this mother is just devoted to her child, and the difficulties of having a sick child and all these things. It was so well done. I loved it. I have no idea if it's good cystic fibrosis rep, but I really enjoyed all of the cystic fibrosis parts of it too. So this book was just so good. And I do believe it was, it was written by a man, which kind of surprised me because he did really well, I thought, on Kate's POV. I've read some books written by men that don't always do well on the female point of view. He did a fine job. Like, I didn't realize until later, like after I read the book, that this book was actually written by a man. So I did want to applaud Nick for doing a fine female perspective. Sometimes you can read them and tell that they were written by a man, and I could not tell in this. So I loved it. 5 out of 5. If you love dogs, if you love books about the relationship between dogs and their people, this is a good book. Go get it. All right, guys, have you read this book? Do you have any other wonderful dog and their people books to recommend to me? Preferably ones where it doesn't get too emotional. I don't want dead dogs. If we can avoid the dead dogs. Or like if they get old and die of old age eventually, that's okay. I don't mind that. I don't want the dramatic, it saved them from rabies and now we had to kill it. Like, I just don't want Old Yeller again. That book was great. The movie was great. It made me cry, but no more Old Yeller for me. All right, my social media is down below. Like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.